Hi, I am Allie Camilletti, and you are listening to Snack Leadership. I will be talking about everything leadership, broken down into bite-sized pieces. You will hear what different leadership skills look like in organizations and how they can rise teams up or take them down. I help leaders build resilience and improve performance by bringing awareness to opportunity behaviors in my business. Spark your mindset. I provide leadership and sales coaching, as well as team building and guest speaking. My hope is for you to feel inspiration and to create a spark in your mindset. Hi everyone. Today we are talking about boundaries. Now, when I interviewed Natalie, we used the definition that boundaries look like a real or imagined line that marks the edge or limit of something. I'm going to introduce another type of definition, and this is a definition for work boundaries. It was given in the website Masterclass, and I'm going to share with you what boundaries at work look like. They say boundaries are the rules and guidelines workers implement for themselves and human resources established for a company to set clear lines between one's professional and personal life. I will say, boundaries. I have been working on boundaries for, I'm a little embarrassed to say, but I want to say at least 8 years. And when it was introduced to me, I don't even think I knew what the word was. It was crazy. And it's something that constantly comes up for me, that I revisit and I check in with myself. Am I setting a good boundary? Is this respectful for myself and who I want to put myself out there as? Now, growing up in hospitality, it's tough because a big part of boundaries has been really that people pleasing. And that with that people pleasing comes not a lot of boundaries. And so it rippled through my entire life, through personal relationships, family relationships. They were all really compromising boundaries. And so it's something I just constantly work on. And Toby Babbage once said in a presentation, and I appreciated it so much. We talked about boundaries in this presentation, and he said, something to keep in mind, Allie, is when we talk about boundaries is that we don't use them with barbed wire when we're originally learning them. And he was completely right. And so anytime we're doing something new and uncomfortable with boundaries, sometimes we'll go in a little harder than we have before because it feels so uncomfortable. And let's use the example of somebody asking us to work an additional hour. And we're all about boundaries. We're setting boundaries. We're not working as many hours. And we say, no, I have boundaries. I'm not going to work that extra hour. Okay, that's a little different than if you said, you know what, I so want to work this additional hour, but I actually have a commitment to pick up my child at that time. If you really need me, I can double check and see if my husband can pick her up. But right now, I'm not in that position to say yes right away. That is a healthy boundary. And it's showing respect to the fact that you have other arrangements and you're speaking up. So let's talk about 4 types of boundaries to set at work. The first one they talk about is emotional boundaries. So these boundaries are often made by communicating preferences and leading from a place of compassion and kindness. Emotional boundaries can include sharing how you prefer to receive feedback. I often will ask people when I am coaching them on sales specifically, and I'll say, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to score these calls, but I want you to know that you get to choose to look at them anytime you want. If you want to look at them first thing when you come in on a Monday, look at them then. If you think that's going to derail you, look at them on your Friday before you leave so you have the weekend to process it. Now, everybody can be sensitive to other people's reactions. And so that's why you want to be careful and really honor people with the feedback that you give them. And so I would say, even when you are doing reviews, asking them that. Hey, do you want to do it on your Monday or do you want to do it on your Friday so that you can have time to think about it in more detail? But it's respecting other people's needs for personal space and time away. And then also requesting that for yourself when needed. Somebody says, hey, I have a conversation, and you can check in and say, is this something that is time pressing? And if they say yes, okay, let's have it. But if it's not, then, hey, do you mind if we have it tomorrow morning? I'm right walking out the door and I have somewhere I need to be. And that speaks to time boundaries, right? So that's specifically when workers are on the clock and when they should go off clock and step away from work and email. One of the things that I have shared with before when I'm working with people is I will tell them sometimes what happens with my schedule is that I pick up my daughter earlier in the day, and so I will end up finishing the rest of my wrap-up emails 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, but that's potentially 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And so I will let them know, if I do that, please know I never expect you to respond or read these. But this is what works for me. And what I've found myself doing lately is I try not to do that anymore. I may draft it, but I don't send it until first thing in the morning because I don't want them to feel like they can read it or should read it, or that's in their minds of like whatever the wrap up was, and give them that boundary. Physical boundaries. So boundaries can dictate how employees physically engage with one another and establish a safe work environment, preventing a feeling of harassment. You can also set physical boundaries to protect your personal space and workstation. This can look like so many different things. If I were who I am today versus who I was 10 years ago, I would have created a different boundary when it came to work travel and when we would all stay in the same homes. That made me feel very uncomfortable, and I never completely spoke up about it. And that's something I would have spoken up about now and said, you know what, I'm just not comfortable staying in a house with all of my coworkers or the clients. I remember some stuff happening that I found a little embarrassing, and it was one of the times I had gone into my room, and the clients were actually staying in this house as well, and had a conversation that was about a rental house, and it was with my renter, and it felt personal. And I walk out, and there is a room full of the owners and employees. And I was like, oh, wow. So they just heard everything. Okay. And that was a boundary that I should have set a little bit earlier, that what was okay and just what wasn't okay. Mental boundaries. This can look like family time, relaxation, paid time off, ensuring workers enjoy vacation time and they're not tied to their phone or their email. It's mental limitations that also come into play when employees need a personal day or need to set limitations on how much they can devote to their work during challenging times. And that's just not expecting that if you're sending an email when they're on vacation, you don't expect them to respond to it. They're on vacation. And you're not texting them when they're on vacation. So really having those good boundaries with that. So how do you set boundaries at work? These are clear boundaries that allow employees to do their best work. Set healthy boundaries in your office or workplace. And you do this by 1, reviewing your job description. Boundary setting begins by ensuring your work responsibilities are not more than those in your job outline. And I'm not saying that, some things aren't going to possibly leak over, but just really being clear on the roles and what they are. So are the responsibilities taken by those who should be taking those responsibilities, or are they distributed sometimes unfairly And that can get into favoritism. And that can look very different when maybe this one person is great at getting something done, so you're constantly giving them extra work. But the other people are like, I wouldn't mind an extra project to kind of challenge me. I'm a little bored. Or that person that's constantly getting that extra work almost feels picked on, of like, why am I getting all these extra projects? This is too much. So that can be a real boundary issue. If you feel like you're doing that additional work and it's outside the description and you're really not being compensated for it, make sure you start the conversation with your supervisor. It's all about communication. And then check in with yourself. Take a pulse. Check to see if others infringe on your workstation, if your boss expects you to work hours outside your designated schedule, or if coworkers make you feel uncomfortable. These can indicate the need for more personal boundaries, which you should discuss with managers or human resources. I can remember there was a job where there was this weird underlining feeling like you had to work crazy hours. And I had been self-employed before, and so I didn't really know what that looked like for me going back into the workforce. So I asked my boss. I was like, tell me, how many hours are we supposed to work? And he pushed back a couple times. And finally, I was like, I need to know. And so then what would happen for me sometimes is I would come in because we had flexible hours in that sense, but he expected maybe a 9-hour day. So I would go in at 6 a.m. because I'm an early riser. And I liked being there when no one else was there. I could really focus well. And then I was able to leave earlier when it was still light outside. So I could go get a jog in or a walk with a friend or something that was good self-care for me. Communicate before bad habits set in. So your mental, physical, and emotional well-being are vital. If other team members are negatively affecting your workplace or your personal wellness, communicate with someone you trust who can help create a healthier office culture. Document issues, share them as they happen to protect and maintain healthy boundaries. Maintain healthy work relationships. This can look like opting for handshakes over hugs. Speak kindly to others about professional but not personal matters. These actions can aid in establishing a safe work environment. It's also important to decide how much of your personal life you want to share. One of the very important questions around boundaries is what belongs in the workplace. And sometimes we can get caught up by what everybody else is talking about, but if it makes you feel uncomfortable, step out. You do not have to engage with that. Is it necessary to bring your problems to the workplace and talk about everything that's going on with your current situation? Just keeping in mind how much of your personal life comes to work. We know that mentally and emotionally, you can't just leave everything at the door, but that doesn't mean that you come in and you're constantly talking about your roommate who is making you crazy or a family member or whatever it is. Like that sets the tone and the energy for the environment. Take time off. Time away from communication platforms, emails, phone calls. It's essential. When using vacation time, log off. Put on your out of office or your do not disturb on your phone. Put it in silence mode. That says, hey, I'm not going to be answering this, and that's okay. This gives you time to relax and recharge, and we all need that time for relaxing and recharging. Learn to say no. This can look different for everybody. Workers may feel pressure to take on every task offered up to impress their supervisors or get ahead, but saying no is vital to maintaining a work-life balance, prioritizing your self-care, and avoiding burnout. I'm not advocating go tell your boss no every day. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just being conscious of what is healthy for you and what's not. I was recently asked by someone if I would be willing to coordinate an event. Well, I had an event planning company for 9 years, and I still have anxiety with event planning. And I do tend to have a little bit of that people pleaser in me, and was like, oh, can I do this? I know my anxiety. I know that right now, the season I'm going into is a busy season for me. And I'm also taking on another work focus project. And I just don't have the bandwidth. And so I'm not going to do that to myself because I know something will get missed. Maybe my sleep, because I'll be working in the middle of the night, focusing on doing this event, and I'll get frustrated, and that'll affect my being able to be present at home with my daughter. And so I said no. Yes, I said no. And it's hard. What went through my mind right away was, what are people going to think of me? Maybe I should just do it. And then I'm like, no, Allie, no, it's okay to have boundaries. This isn't the right time. You're not in the right space for it. And hey, there will be a time when you will be, but it's not right now. So just as you hope people accept your boundaries, you have to learn to respect others' boundaries. So when you're working on boundaries, pay attention when other people are setting boundaries. And in the interview, Natalie talked about watching somebody set really good boundaries and learning from them. I'm going to leave you with the following quote by Brene Brown. Daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves even when we risk disappointing others. Thank you for tuning in to Snack Leadership. I hope you felt inspiration, motivation, and felt your mindset spark. Snack Leadership is recorded and produced by myself, Allie Camilletti, and music by Shireen Amini.